Hello, I'm inside my XR4i and I'm making this video in English. I think that some audience in UK or mainland Europe might be interested in my tinkering here. XR4i came out with a 2.8 liter Cologne family of engine. This car had the engine for the first 35 years or so. Today my car has a newer, more refined engine from Ford Scorpio, the 24 valve 2.9 liter Cologne family engine, so it was pretty easy swap over. The Scorpio engine came out with a variable intake system that I have not hooked up yet. In today's video I'm going to show what is required in order to make the variable intake system work on an older car like XR4i. Now, the variable intake system in Scorpio engine was something new at a time in the early 90s. Today it's considered to be outdated. All the variable camshaft lift and duration systems have made the variable intake system obsolete. But all the hot rodders know that if you tune the intake properly, you may gain a little bit of horsepower and quite some torque. So that's what the variable intake system in Scorpio was all about. Now let's see what is actually required in order to make the variable intake system work. First of all, the valve itself is in the inlet manifold. The valve looks like this. It's dirty. It's from an old car, not this one, but it's a spare that I'm going to use today. And here you can see the vacuum actuator that is being operated by the engine vacuum. In order to have the vacuum present at all times, you need to have some sort of reservoir, and this is the Scorpio original reservoir. It contains vacuum. It does not let it leak even if the inlet manifold loses vacuum on higher RPM. And the third component you need, besides some hoses, is going to be some vacuum solenoid. Now this one that I have here is pretty inexpensive one from BMW. This one I chose mainly because of its relatively inexpensive price, small size, and the connector, which is the common connector for injectors if you have some, and the connector itself is really inexpensive, so it's commonly available. Also, this one has the positive and negative terminals marked on a connector side here, so it's really easy to connect correctly. So these three things you need in order to make the variable intake system work. And of course you need to control this solenoid by your ECU or some other device, but the ECU is going to be my choice because the switching on and off is dependent on your RPM. Now I rigged all the parts into the engine and I was running the engine a little bit. So the vacuum is being hooked up in here in a port, and it's being connected to the reservoir here. Now the reservoir is being connected here into the solenoid, and the solenoid is being connected into the variable intake valve. Now the solenoid is being controlled via the battery by just switching it on and off. See what happens. Now normally the solenoid is open, but see what happens when I hook on the power. You hear the hissing sound? That's the vacuum escaping from the reservoir. Haha, it's working. That's cool. So it's working. The next thing to do is to actually hook it up into the car and make it kind of hidden. So what I'm going to do about it, I'm probably making some time lapse so you don't have to look at me tinker around too long a time. So see you afterwards. Okay, it's a couple of days later. I got the bracket done. It looks like this. Now I used some old metal, sheet metal that I had, cut it, bend it, beat it to almost straight. Now my bracket has a place for 3 solenoids. First one is going to be for the variable intake system. Second one is for the AC, the air circulation, and the third one is for exhaust muffler cutout, which I'm going to install later. So I'm going to use the first 2 at this time. I also made a ready wiring harness so that I just can hook it up and it's already in place. And now I need to hook this up. Now I chose a place at the firewall. It's behind the cowl, I think, and there was some bolts coming through where I bolted my ECU on the firewall, so I can use the back side of those bolts to actually bolt this onto. This extension here, this goes to the AC unit, and then I made some little hose connections here, so I hope those are good. Welded on some nuts on the other side to bolt onto. It's easier. Well, I think it's gonna be okay. Now let's go put this in place. Now the bracket is in place. It fits there quite nice. The only problem is that my reservoir here, it comes a little bit too far out, so it'll hit the cowl there. It's too bad. I have to modify that. So we're back. Some almost 2 weeks later, a couple of snowstorms and a little bit of welding and fabricating. I have this panel ready. It's far from perfect, but it'll do. Let's button it up. Now, the last thing to do to make the variable intake system work is to make your ECU switch it on and off when it's required. Now I have a ViPEC ECU, which is a standalone ECU from the late 90s, early 2000s, and I just made the adjustments on it so that it will switch the variable intake system on and off. So let's see what it does. So that was fun. It seems to be looping or switching it on and off as I was expecting. So now all I have to do is take her out for a spin and see how it performs. But I think I'll leave that to another video. So goodbye for now.